But that leads on to, so, I mean, Anthony alluded to it earlier about engagement, which is top of mind, and a word that's being used, employee engagement. We know that 3/4 of senior execs say, this is the key to success going forward. So with that as a background, Mervyn, how is technology going to help in the future with enabling associate engagement?
It's a good question. I mean, engagement is not an initiative or a project. I mean, it's the outcome of treating people with respect, of valuing what they do. People are engaged in businesses, we know, when they're aligned with the vision and values. They understand what the purpose of their role is. They understand the greater purpose of their role. There's lots of surveys done. Some people say it's, hearing people say thank you, being thanked for work they've done. People showing respect, valuing them in the workplace. A lot of these things, particularly as we're in a time where maybe wages have been squeezed, but people aren't engaged by a paycheck. They're engaged by what they do. And I think that technology that works, I mean, it's often said that we're now, our customers and clients have got better tech than we have, and our employees go home and have probably better, faster, more responsive tech than they have at work. So tech that works, that doesn't block what the employee does, doesn't get in the way of what the employee does, is personalised to a point where they feel that they have an impact. It's something that they do, allowing them to use it where they want, so that they don't have to be in a physical location all the time. They're not called into the office for a meeting that could be done online. I mean, there's lots of ways to make people feel that you're supporting them in getting their job done and you're valuing what they do. Okay. I think that's a key thing, particularly if they're people who aren't, they're not going to the staff party because they're not permanent employees. They're not, they're not benefiting from the fresh fruit that you have on the desks every Monday and stuff.
Yeah. And I know, Anthony, you obviously had some views when we spoke before on that engagement, making sure that technology doesn't enforce engagement, but it's certainly an enabler. So what have you seen from your research?
Well, look, let's put cards on the table. Employee engagement has a positive impact on the performance of businesses, and one can look at that economically, as I do as a professional economist. I spend most of my time with accountants, which is quite a frightening place to be. And back to the sleep sort of analogy that we had earlier, you can imagine. But nevertheless, when you talk to CFOs, they get really excited about employee engagement, because when they see the engagement scores go north, they know that the financials will look better when they see them, which I think is very interesting. So anything that actually is pushing against the idea of encouraging, helping, enabling better employee engagement will always be welcome in the C-suite. That's categorical. But I think we've all got a bit too carried away with ourselves here. And I really mean ourselves, because the technology element has made us all rampant narcissists. We all think that everyone's interested in our blog, or everyone thinks that actually that whatever you're tweeting right now, do you think someone's actually reading that?
Of course they are. Of course they are.
I hope they
obviously,
are.
obviously, And what people tweet and a whole host of other things are all rather interesting, aren't they? And two points that I think we should take away. I mean, the first one it's actually quite a nice audience to talk to, because when I say the Maslow hierarchy of needs, you know what I'm talking about. To accountants, they think that's just something that's the sort of sequel to insanity training at the gym or something. And what's happened with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think, is that we've seen an inversion. You remember, the sort of self-awareness thing at the top, self-actualization and all the rest of it. Well, it seems now that we all want to start down there, And I think you're right, Merv. I do genuinely think that corporate brand, employee engagement, people's identity, what we're working for, we all want to be part of a bigger picture. But hey, we've kind of got shareholders, we've got managers, we've got customers, we've got things that need doing. It's not all about us. It's actually about sort of how we enable things to happen. So we've somehow got to get our heads around that, and we've got to have a kind of grown-up conversation in 21st century capitalism about the trade-off between actually getting the job done, and actually having a really nice time while we do it. Yes, so I think that's the first thing that we need to get our heads around. The second thing is that I've got a PhD student who's just in the process of submitting his PhD. It's a fascinating piece of work. He's Russian. Now, talking about hierarchies, we can get very interesting there. And I'm on video, so I ought to be careful about what I say about my Russian compatriots, nevertheless. President Putin has an interesting take on the European Union at the moment. But anyway, that aside, what I find absolutely fascinating about Pavel's research is that he has demonstrated absolutely palpably he's interested in the power of social media, what people call Web 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, 5.0, whatever now. Its capacity to enable people to collaborate and share learning, develop capability, and all the kind of things that we read about in terms of social media and engagement and everybody being involved. Well, guess what he's found? Actually, most people are interested in social learning to basically promote themselves, to develop their individual goals. It's an individual transaction that has utility for the individual. So the challenge to technology to the people on either side of me here is to think through what solutions look like about technology so we can collaborate. Yeah. So we can achieve the things together in an organisation that we can't achieve on our own. And that's what technology is supposed to be doing. You know, and if that can increase my productivity, if that can enable me to please a customer, and if it can make my employees feel kind of cool about coming into work and they found a best friend at work online, even better. You know, and if they really want to tweet about it, let them tweet about it if they must. But ultimately, you know, I think we're all becoming rampant narcissists, and we need to think much less about ourselves and more about all those other people. Because the defining hallmark of a leader, you know, I've got some senior players around me, you know, this afternoon. Talk to most leaders, and they'll say to you that it's not about me. It's about how I enable everybody else to get done what they need to get done, whether it's my shareholders, my wider stakeholders, my employees, my customer base. Paul Polman has this wonderful phrase, it's my executive license to practice. If I understand that, then everybody will want to come and work with me because we're all going to have a great time and in their case, change and improve the planet and make some money at the same time. But it's, you know, this stuff about employee engagement is kind of cool, but you know, it's kind of talking to my 14-year-old again. You know, you've got to turn the social media off. Yeah. You've got to sleep. There's some stuff you have to do.
Yeah. Can I just follow on that? Because I think one of the things I find in technology where you're working with an employee is sometimes the technology can get in the way. So if you're doing performance management and you've got a tool that you've got to fill in, you know, that's sometimes what becomes the task. And I think it's really important that from an engagement perspective, the relationship that the line manager or the leader in that business forms with their employee is the engagement. You know, and if you put technology in the way of that engagement, you have to build trust. You have to be able to build respect. You have to like each other most of the time. And you have to have confidence that they're going to deliver. Because if you can create a healthy relationship with that individual, and that's hard when distance is a factor. But that, for me, works well in our business, where we get employees who talk to other employees face-to-face and do things and use the technology to enable that conversation. They don't put the technology in front of it. They have the conversation and use the technology to enable it. So.
Well, but I think that links back to the engagement piece at the beginning. You know, we haven't seen engagement increase substantially over many years. We're just using different tools to engage. You know, a good company will either engage well with its employees or it doesn't, no matter what tools are in the way. So it's how you embrace those tools and technology. But Bridget, for you, oh, sorry.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So from a technology standpoint, I think one of the reasons that there's not a very strong, say, tooling around engagement is because it's such a soft concept as such that it's hard to model into something you can actually use. So again, it touches many different areas, right? So some people think of engagement in terms of flexibility, whether it's, you know, time-based compensation, benefits, whatever it is, okay, which is something you can more or less model using some sort of system. Some other people will think that it has to do with recognition. So if you find a way for your employees to recognize some sort of merit internally or externally, or your partners or your customers, well, that's something you can possibly factor in. Some of the things people will say, like Mr. Pink, which I'm sure most of you know, this drive thing, will tell you about purpose. So if your company has a purpose, if your employee feels that his or her job has a purpose, then he's magically engaged. What I'm afraid it seems more complicated than that, at least from a technology side of things. Now, having said that, there are a number of interesting tools and things happening in the technology space. I'm sure some of you may have played with some of them. There's these companies called Tiny HCM, which actually allows you to create real-time or pretty much real-time feedback on whatever is happening in your company. So you can place that on whatever internal web page or even your own system, okay, and get that feedback online. Some of the vendors out there, including ADP, including Workday, do allow that kind of feedback on what's happening on actual projects, on actual initiatives, on specific employees. But that's something you can actually factor in. Okay. Now there's another element beyond this example. Are you guys familiar with a company called Work.com, which works on the Salesforce platform? So let me give you some context. If you run a sales team, one of the things you want to do is, of course, make sure they hit their targets, but at the same time, make sure they're sufficiently engaged and committed to do their job. Well, this kind of tool, this Work.com solution, you can check on the web, allows the peers of that sales guy to rate his or her job, okay? Pretty much in real time, okay? So that gives you allows you to create some additional engagement and commitment from that at a team level, okay? And there are many other examples. So as I'm saying, technology is moving slowly to drive some sort of engagement. But I think the most important example has nothing to do with actual recognition or feedback. It has to do with generating hard data around engagement. So what are the real engagement drivers? So today, okay, if you have a relatively sophisticated analytics system, okay, you can actually derive and correlate, okay, your engagement drivers. Okay, so if we go back to that pyramid, you can determine based on that information and comparing different employees and areas whether certain factors are dissatisfaction factors or satisfaction factors for a certain employee. You can definitely do that today. Okay, now. The reality is that today is a one-off type exercise. Most vendors out there, whether we're talking Oracle, SAP, Workday, us, have not factored that into the actual products, but that's definitely coming. That's definitely coming. So 2 or 3 years from now, the idea is that as an HR person, you will be able to tell, okay, where that person is the level of engagement for a particular individual based on the actual factors or actual hard data. Again, not there yet, but it will happen. It will definitely happen. It will definitely. Of course, go ahead.
Sorry, Camille.
No.
Well, I was just going to say one of the topics that came through loud and clear was obviously the engagement, but on an international scale, and how you manage talent from different parts of the world, different countries, and how do you measure and monitor that engagement? Bridget, what's your experience of that?
Yeah, so as I thought about technology and engagement, sort of the first thing I actually discounted was, we love our big systems that run our engagement surveys now, right? We can scale, we can look cross-border managers, we can see if you've all taken the tool, the survey, we can do sophisticated roll-ups and look at trends year over year. That's great, but that's really not transforming engagement levels in a company. So as I think about how we can continue to leverage technology, really I had 2 areas I was going to talk about. One, I think you hit well. I think managers get a little bored with us HR folks pushing the process of engagement and surveys once a year, and they do want more real time. They want to hit a button and know, how am I doing in July, not just March when we run a survey. So, if we can begin to crystallize those global, universal kind of factors, like leading indicators, I would say, in my primitive little technology speak, that predict engagement and measure those. So we know career, feeling that you have the ability to grow your career is equated with engagement. So can we look at talent movement? Can we connect talent movement to our high potentials? And is that going to tell us a story maybe 4 times a year versus once a year? Can we look at measure certain qualities of our leaders, in particular if we're giving them any sort of learning or development? Because we know really good leaders impact engagement. So I don't have like a perfect answer there, but I'm excited to hear your answer because I do think HR would have a lot more credibility. This isn't about HR's report card, it's about our report card as a company and our leaders' report card on themselves. And then the other thing, and I am going to make it like, I guess, touchy-feely, but we do, so y'all know exit interviews. We do at ADP, not all over, and certain times we do stay interviews. It's a tool perhaps that many of you have used. It's pretty simple, exit interviews. You talk to people as they're leaving and say, why are you leaving? And stay interviews, you say, why are you staying? And and I'm not sure if, I would like to think this is an ADP phenomenon, and if you've done them, I want to hear afterwards what your number one was. But at ADP, our number one answer, like far and above, is the people. So they talk about ADP peers and colleagues, and then they talk about clients. And so as I think about like this global world that I work in, you know, where I'm a gal from Chicago, living in Paris, talking to you all in London. I had a call at 6 a.m. with India this morning, you know, like my boss is in New Jersey. It's kind of crazy. And I know maybe not everyone's life is that crazy, but the world that some of us live in, it is really a geographically dispersed team. So if community and that connection is a number one driver to keep people at a company, we do have to figure out the secret sauce to replicate that as our work groups change. Again, I don't have an answer, but I think the person who gets there is going to win.